Welcome, everyone, to the PFF Fantasy Podcast, IDP edition. I'm your host, Jon Macri, fantasy analyst here at PFF. And as you are all well aware, it's prospect season, or hashtag grinding the tape season. And that continues here for another exciting episode, breaking down some incoming rookies. This time around, we're talking the linebacker class, which I know IDP managers are going to be excited to get into. We have some very interesting names worthy of your excitement, perhaps. But we'll do a deep dive on a bunch of them, and we'll talk about where we have these guys ranked and things like that. But yeah, it'll be fun. We got an absolute beauty of a beautician here, Kyle Bellefeuil, on to break it all down with me as well. So I'm excited. Let's get into it. Here we go. Oh, yes. Linebacker time, baby. And who else would I have but the man himself? Just an absolute beauty and fellow IDP DGen who's helped me preview the incoming crop of linebackers many times before. From footballguys.com, it's the legendary Thrilla from the Upper Peninsula, Kyle Bellefeuil. KB, how's it going, brother?
It's going great, brother, man. You are too kind. You're making me blush over here with all those accolades and that intro. No, man, I'm doing great. Happy to be back and appreciate you inviting me on. And yeah, always down to talk some linebackers. You know how us IDP DGens love those linebackers, right?
Absolutely, man. It's always a fun position to get into, especially when we start talking rookies and things like that. And there's always optimism and excitement around rookies coming in, right? So I think that for IDP people, that's particularly a lot more excitement around the linebacker class, right? Because there's potential there for some tackle monsters, which we're always happy to try to look into. But yeah, I'm excited to talk with you as well. You know, whether it's football, just shooting the shit, or commiserating in the frustration that is the Detroit Red Wings.
Yes,
it's always a good time, right? But
absolutely.
As much as I'm sure we can do like a 2-hour moan fest on how the Red Wings season fell apart, let's focus on linebackers. That'll be much more positive, I think, and it'll keep me from breaking down in tears during the episode as well.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man, this will be fun. We got 8 linebackers to cover today, so we'll go over them in alphabetical order, and then we'll share our rankings of those 8, and that coming into the draft, and for dynasty rookie IDP draft purposes, that is. So it'll be fun. But before we get into it, I do want to let everybody know to check out the PFF mock draft simulator if you haven't already. You can take control and draft for your favorite team, or draft for the entire league, however you like to do it. I know personally I like to draft for all teams, make my own mocks, try out different strategies, things like that. It's a great way to kill time before the NFL draft. And if you use the promo code 30MDS right now on PFF.com, you get 30% off annual subscriptions, which includes all of our NFL draft content, which there is plenty. And then, of course, you get access to the best mock draft simulator in the league here at PFF. So check it out now. Go have yourself some fun. Again, it is promo code 30MDS. All right, here we go. Let's dive in to our linebacker prospects for 2024. And KB, I'm sure we'll kind of touch on this throughout, and it differs obviously for each player. But I think, one thing that was kind of apparent last year when we did this was that group wasn't necessarily going to come in and win NFL starting jobs right away and be immediate IDP contributors for the most part, right? Like we had hopes for Jack Campbell and Ivan Pace. But I think after watching like a good chunk of these guys and all the top names, that I'm getting a similar vibe for most of the class, right? And landing spot is going to play a part in that, whether or not that's true as well. But I'm curious what your kind of overall sense is with this class. Are you in a similar boat, or are you more optimistic about more of these guys kind of making themselves a case for day one starters in the NFL?
No, I think you nailed it. I think there's a couple of guys that have the potential, to get the nice draft capital and good situations. Like you said, landing spot means a lot. There's a couple of guys I think that can be, year one productive guys, but for the most part, this class, it's going to be, a lot of patience and development. I think we preach patience a lot when we talk, about these guys, but no, I totally agree. Like it's a not a necessarily deep class looking at it now. I mean, landing spots can move guys around and stuff, but there's a few guys at the top I really like, and then after that, it's pick your poison of who you like more than the other guy, and let's see where they fall.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? That's kind of what I've gotten from it as well. Like there's definitely guys at the top who I think definitely have potential, right? And there's still some like linebacker needy teams out there, right? So things could go in the right direction here, but when you're doing dynasty IDP rookie drafts, it's at least recently it's been rare that we get like a day one starter that we're targeting, right? Where most of the time we're targeting these guys because we have hopes for them down the road. And I think there's some guys that have some like good long-term potential in here too. I think that makes them a little bit more interesting as well. So I don't know. I found it an interesting class. There's some guys I definitely was lower on and things like that, but there's some guys that I came away actually liking a little bit more than I thought I would too. So well, let's get into it. Enough of the preamble, I guess, but let's start it off here in alphabetical order, which I think I mentioned earlier, but that's just the way we'll do it because I'm as creative as a stack of bricks. But with Cedric Gray of North Carolina, KB, what were your kind of takeaways from Gray watching him?
Yeah, so the first thing looking at Cedric Gray is the experience and production profile he has during his time at North Carolina. Over his last 3 seasons, he's played in 39 games, racked up 368 tackles, 29 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, and 5 interceptions. So, I mean, he checks the boxes as far as experience, production. It's nice to see that, right? He's been on the field a lot, and he's put up splash plays, a little bit of ball production, and tackles. So, always like to see that. He shows good play speed. He strikes me as a run and chase kind of linebacker, for the most part, watching him play. He ran a 4.64 40 at the combine at 6'1", 234. It's a pretty solid time. Some of the other guys ran a little faster, but it's a pretty solid time. And it's, it shows on tape. He's got good range and stuff. I think he does have some 3-down upside. You see some flashes in coverage. He graded as a 78 coverage grade in 2023, which is pretty nice. And, he's got 5 career interceptions, like I said, so a little bit of ball production there. I thought he was also, he's pretty effective blitzer at times, and it showed up, with his 29 tackles for loss and 8.5 sacks there. So I mean, he's made plays behind the line, so he could be, used in that regard as well. So he's got a little 3-down upside to his game. Some of the things as far as the cons were missed tackles were an issue. 21 missed tackles in 2021, 17 in 2022, and 19 in 2023. I just think he needs to clean that up. That's too many misses. I mean, that's 19 a year on average. That's quite a few. I know he was out there a lot, but it's pretty high numbers. I think along those missed tackle regards, I thought there were some reps where he would leave his feet and dive to make a tackle where he necessarily didn't have to. It just kind of a technique thing. I think if you tighten that up, he might clean up some of those misses. Athletic guy, he's just trying to make plays. Like I get it, but there's just too many misses. I thought he showed some willingness to take on blocks, but I thought overall he kind of struggled with the physicality with the big fellas too. Those are kind of the bigger takeaways, or the missed tackles and the physicality, end of things as far as the cons go. But how about you?
Yeah, I think a lot of the same cons for sure. And yeah, as far as like pros go, like I'll start there, just kind of like with him in run defense. I thought like that was one of the bigger positives I took from him. Like he had some really great reads and kind of awareness on the field. And I think that comes with like that experience that you mentioned, right? Like he commits to his reads. He plays aggressive to try to make those tackles. And the only thing is like, it could work for him or it could work against him. Right. And just depending on how good his read actually is. And, I at least from him, I appreciated the kind of commitment, at least from diving at guys to try to make those tackles, which was more than I could say for some other names on this list who we'll get into here. But there were definitely moments with him where I was kind of like, wow, like that's a hell of a read, great instincts. And then there are times where I'm like, oh, he he might just be guessing and hoping for the best here.
Yep.
But that being said, 10.9% run stop rate over the past 2 years combined is fourth best in this class. So that aggressiveness and ability to make tackles around the line of scrimmage, it's there. But yeah, you mentioned it too. Like the biggest problem for me, he needs to be kept clean in order to deliver, because like shedding and getting off of blocks, it wasn't a strong point, right?
Yep.
He gets washed out a ton. It's going to be a problem in the NFL when facing bigger and stronger players. And he never really, improved throughout this past season in that regard, which I saw, which kind of a concern for me. He's just snuffed out regularly by offensive linemen and even tight ends to the point where he's getting pushed back like 5 yards at a time, right? So that was one of the main concerns, at least as a run defender. In coverage, I thought he did a fine job kind of getting to receivers in open space, but overruns his target or just flat out misses the tackle. It doesn't look pretty. I thought he played a little bit out of control at times. That aggression, like we said, could work to his advantage as a run defender. It rarely kind of works out in coverage. So the coverage grades, like you said, they're actually okay, but I just worry that he looks a little lost at times playing zone and over pursuing and some bad angles. They're just going to be killer for him in the NFL. So I guess not as optimistic about him like being like a 3-down guy. Not right now, anyways. Not to say that he can't develop into that, but there's just I guess I had some more concerns just with him in coverage. And like you said, I mean, 57 missed tackles over the last 3 seasons as a starter. Like that, like you said, nearly 20 a year, right? So he just gets washed out a ton, which is always a concern too. Combine that with the missed tackles, and those are 2 kind of crucial negatives on him translating to the NFL, especially as a starter. But I like the experience. That's a one thing. I like the aggressiveness. I think that could turn into something, over time in the NFL. But he's one of those guys that I'm probably concerned about being like a day one starter coming into the league, right?
Oh, I am with you there. I think his tape was hot and cold. Like, like you mentioned, the coverage, like he like it would be one rep, he would have his feet under him, would be a little more under control, be where he needs to be. In the next play, he's just, helmet down, ready to make a play. And like you said, when you're going after ball carriers is one thing, but when you have a responsibility, in zone or something, that you can't just be overrunning your fit. So no, I totally get. I think he's, I think he has a little 3-down potential, but it's going to take a little time. I don't necessarily think he's going to walk in and be ready to do that right off the jump. So
yeah, for sure. Did you have like a favorite landing spot for him at all?
Yeah, this class was a lot of fun to pick landing spots.
Yeah, I know,
right? So I picked Arizona. So I'm not sure. I was kind of picking for different guys, and I ended up going with Arizona. Kaiser White's on his last year of his deal. Chris Barnes was brought back in 1-year deal. Mac Wilson, 1-year deal. They drafted Owen Pepo last year in the 5th round. Guy, he kind of had some potential. I think they could take a shot on a guy like Cedric Gray on day 3 and let him learn from those veterans, because Kaiser White's kind of the guy if he's healthy, obviously, and then you got the Thumper and Barnes and Mac Wilson and whatever, and those guys aren't necessarily world beaters, but he can sit behind and learn and maybe get a shot in year 2 or something if he proves to develop some of the things that he needs to clean up. So how about you?
Yeah, I had Arizona as well. So
Really?
only because I wanted somewhere that the path to playing time would eventually be like a positive for him, right? Like that there would be a nice path to playing time.
Yep.
Like I have a hard time seeing him kind of beating out some of the other linebackers in the NFL, right, for starting jobs. So I wanted that path for him to be a little bit easier, because like I said, I like the aggression. I think there's potential there. I think the NFL teams are going to value that kind of experience as well. So I don't mind the Arizona spot. Like Chris Barnes and Mac Wilson or kind of whatever, right? So there's potential there.
Look at us, man.
Right away we're 1 for 1. So
wait till we get drafted by Arizona, we can just take laps all around
there
Twitter.
Make a short of this. All right, so let's go on to the next guy here, who I'm actually probably a little bit more optimistic about, and that is Edgerrin Cooper out of Texas A&M. So he is the number 2 linebacker on the PFF big board. Cedric Gray was number 9 for those that aren't aware, but Edgerrin Cooper, number 2 on the big board, 6'3", 230 pounds. Really good at beating those second level blocks with speed and putting himself into position before blockers get hands on him. And it's a huge part of his game against the run. He's aggressive. Again, another guy like that, who puts himself in good position to make plays. And more often than not, he does, right? He obviously, like any linebacker who's playing a ton of snaps each game is going to have snaps where he's locked up. But much more often than not, he knows how to avoid those second level blockers and things like that and get in a good position. I thought he had really good technique as a tackler as well. Like, yeah, he misses tackles, but they all do. We'll talk about it. There's a lot of guys here who have missed tackle problems every year,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But it's at least been something that he's cleaned up every year. And the way that he wraps guys up and brings them down, you could tell that he's worked on it and improved quite a bit already in that regard. So not necessarily like a rangy sideline to sideline player, much more of a kind of between the tackles Mike type linebacker, which is fine. Those guys work just fine for IDP purposes. On passing downs, I noticed they often utilize him as kind of like a spy, right? They keep him close to the line of scrimmage, and a lot of his pressures and sacks actually come from that like spy role more than like typical pass rush snaps, where he just sees that opening, has the green light, and then goes for it. He had 27 pressures and 10 sacks in 2023. So nice numbers there from Cooper. As far as coverage goes, not a linebacker that was asked to drop into coverage or carry tight ends down the seam or anything like that. So there's not like a ton of sample of him as a coverage linebacker, which I think speaks a bit just at how the team chose to deploy him and potentially play to his strengths by keeping him in that spy or pass rusher role on pass downs. But he had an 85.5 coverage grade this past year. A number of those big plays are, technically coverage first because he's playing spy, and then ends up pass rushing or making a play around the line of scrimmage because that's just kind of where he lives. But I thought that was really promising for me, is that when he was, or what I thought was really promising was that when he was asked to drop into coverage more in 2022, for example, he was actually really good at breaking up passes and playing that true coverage linebacker role, which wasn't as common for him in 2023. So he's certainly at least capable of it based on the tape, but not something I found them asking him to do a lot in 2023. So yeah, how about you? Where are you at with Cooper?
Yeah, I like Cooper. See a lot of the same things. He's got that long athletic build. He's got 34-inch arms. He's just a long athletic dude that, really, can hold down the middle. He ran a good time, 4.5 140 at 6'2", 230. So, he showed that he has speed. It's a little more promising for his range as they utilize him a little differently with every team he goes for, right? At the next level. So he's got a nice tackle radius. He did show he has some speed. He's an aggressive dude, like you talked about. I really liked the way he could trigger downhill and he can get there in a hurry. The splash play production, like you talked about, 17 tackles for loss this year. Was it 10 sacks? I think you said he had.
Yeah.
That's huge. So he kind of can fill the stat sheet for you. He's a really interesting dude. He did a lot of things. Like you said, he fills the stat columns up, provides value as a blitzer. And, like you said, he wasn't always asked to drop a ton, but you did see the ability. So, there's some promise there too. So, he has skill sets to stay on the field in different ways on third down if teams want to utilize him. He's one of those guys, aggressive dude. Sometimes he overruns his fit. We talked about that with Cedric Gray. I also thought there was times like in the open field, he would come in hot and he would lose his feet. He was just like, wouldn't chop and break down and square up. It's just like, he was just like tunnel vision sometimes, it's just something to, I thought he was feisty taking on blocks, which I liked, but I thought he got stuck at times too. So maybe a little bulk or something in that area, but he was feisty, I thought overall, which I appreciate that. So it's not easy. I couldn't do it. I know that I can't do much.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think very similar, right? Like he, to me, was kind of used very similarly to how Cincinnati used Ivan Pace last year, right? In that kind of pass rush spy role on passing downs, and like similar play style against the run where they're just looking to win by being slippery and fast and shedding those blocks. So as opposed to try to stack and shed, right? But obviously Cooper much taller, bigger than Pace, so different players in that way. But yeah, I kind of love what he brings as a run defender. I think he'll find success in the NFL, like between the tackles with that quickness and slipperiness, and in being able to avoid getting locked up, putting himself in a good position to make plays. And yeah, I'll be interested to see if the NFL views him as an every down linebacker.
Yeah.
I think there's opportunity for that just because he's a natural blitzer and plays that spy pass rusher role well. But for maybe like a team that plays a lot more zone, they could be using him as a drop coverage linebacker, which there is evidence of that he can do it. It's just less of a sample size, right? So, yeah, I think fit's going to be a big thing. But, well, speaking of fit, let's talk about landing spot. I have him going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Okay.
So obviously,
like
this is a team that, lost Devin White in the offseason. They brought back Levante David. They have Servassier Dennis, who's much more of a run defender than coverage linebacker. So we'll see there. But I think Cooper is a much better fit in that Devin White role, where he'll play a ton of spy and rush the passer and also, be better technique as a tackler. But he has that similar aggressiveness, right? So I think it could be a decent transition there in how they play their game, with Cooper hopefully being an upgrade. But I think he's one of those guys that has that day one kind of starting potential, especially in a spot like Tampa Bay, over a guy like a KJ Britt or a Servassier Dennis.
Yeah, no, I like that spot. I have Cooper going to Green Bay, which that hits home for me because I'm a Packer fan. Yeah, no, I mean, I think he's like I said, he's a tall, long, athletic linebacker in Green Bay. I know they have Jeff Hafley coming in now, defensive coordinator, but it seems they have affinity for those long, taller linebackers the way they have been drafting them and picking them up, like Devondre Campbell for agency and Quay and stuff.
Right.
Devondre Campbell's moved on. He didn't necessarily have the best year last year. He was banged up, and I don't think he was too happy with certain things.
Right.
And Quay, he's been up and down, man. I'm not quite sure. I'll be curious to see how things shape up once they, hit OTAs and all that good stuff and what they're saying. I still like Quay and all, but he's been hit and miss. Sometimes he fills his gap. Sometimes he's not sure what he's seeing. Sometimes he's guessing. Tons of ability there, but he could use a running mate like a guy like Cooper to, I think Cooper could be a guy in the middle for us and hold it down. And we're good up front. I think our defensive line, I'm going to turn this into a Packer podcast. I'm sorry, John. But Isaiah McDuffie, I thought he was our best linebacker last year, to be honest. Yeah. When he got consistent play, I thought overall he was just consistently the best. So he played for Hafley, I think, for a year at Boston College anyway. But they need a guy, and I like Cooper, and I think he kind of fits what they've been looking for, and I'm hoping he's there and Hafley likes him too.
Yeah, that would be a fun spot for sure.
Yeah.
I definitely have a Green Bay landing spot on the list here coming up. Kind of a different style of well, maybe not totally different style of linebacker, but we'll see. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But I would be excited, for Cooper there. But yeah, Isaiah McDuffie, you're right. He did play well last year. I think he's earned a shot here to potentially start again, right? So. All right, we'll keep moving, but first I do want to give a quick shout out to our presenting sponsor, Fabric by Gerber Life. If you have a family, then you need to get term life insurance to protect them. It's one of the smartest financial decisions you can make, and the start of the new year is the perfect time to get it done so you can focus on whatever else the year has in store for you. Fabric was designed by parents for parents to help you get a high quality, surprisingly affordable term life insurance policy in less than 10 minutes. Fabric has flexible policies that fit your family and your budget, with quality policies like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. Get your personalized quote in just minutes and then apply when it's convenient for you. It's all online and on your schedule. You can go from start to covered in less than 10 minutes with no health exam required. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/fantasy. That's meetfabric.com/fantasy, meetfabric.com/fantasy. Policy is issued by Western Southern Life Insurance Company, not available in certain states. Price is subject to underwriting and health questions. All right, keeping it rolling here, out to the national champs, Kyle. Your Michigan Wolverines' own Junior Colson is up next. What are your thoughts on Colson?
Yeah, it's all gold stars for Colson, my Michigan Wolverine dude here. Yeah, I appreciate you letting me take the lead on one of my one of my favorites here. No, yeah, Colson. He's we didn't get to see him at the combine, and he didn't do. I don't really think he did anything at the pro day. I thought I saw something about an injury. Not sure, but yeah, we didn't get any data on him anyway. But I think you watch tape. I think he's a nice size, or a nice combination of size and speed for the position you look at. He's 6'2", 238. I thought he moves well for a guy that size. I thought I think he's got pretty good range, good burst getting downhill. He moves pretty well. As far as change of direction for a guy his size, I thought he was a pretty easy mover considering. He's a solid run defender. He's a solid run defender and a solid tackler. He has just a 6.2% career missed tackle rate. Doesn't miss many. And that's having played at least 500 snaps over his 3 years at Michigan, beginning as a freshman. So, the number's low, but he's been out there since he's been on campus. So you like to see that. He's consistently been a strong run defender. I think he does have some coverage ability. He graded out well, 83.4 coverage grade this season. He's got size to match up with tight ends, and I think he's got the ability to turn and run with backs as well. There's just some instances too where he kind of has a decent feel in zone. So I think you see it as far as the coverage aspect. He can do a little everything. With the potential to even grow there a little bit as he gets coached up to. So I do like his 3-down ability, and I'm probably biased because he's a Michigan Wolverine fan. But so just some of the cons, I guess. I thought he was pretty solid overall with his reads, but I did see some times where he was hesitant. I don't know if he just struggled with the play recognition and he was hesitant in that regard, but I thought there was times where he could just kind of maybe trust his eyes a little more and just go. And then, he's an aggressive dude, and I did appreciate his willingness and aggression taking on blocks. He takes them head on in the hole, which is a tough task. Well, I totally dig the willingness to do that and appreciate it. He can get stuck when the big fellas hit him. I mean, they're bigger, right? They're tough to move and hold your ground. But he'll hit him head on in the hole, but he can get ridden out though. But it's a tough task there.
Of course, right? And look, any linebacker, like they're going to have those instances, right, where they're just outmatched by these big offensive linemen. It's bound to happen. But like you said, Junior Colson, just such a clean run defender, like plays his gaps well. He sheds blocks. He makes tackles, has a really solid, like kind of center of gravity as well, right? For a guy who's 6'3", he's big. We have him as 247. Like he's great on his feet. Like I don't know what. I don't know. Obviously, like you said, he didn't do anything at the combine. I don't know where his last weigh-in is. I don't know. 247 felt big, but either way, like just he's impressed with. He is a big guy, right? But consistently in the right position and has just found a way to improve in each season. It has a really nice sample size of work to watch him just playing like clean gap sound football like you like from your linebackers. And also, like, this is important because it's an issue for college linebackers. We've talked about it, in years past till we've been blue in the face. And you mentioned it as well. Like, the missed tackles, like he is head and shoulders better than his peers at wrapping up and not, I almost swore, and not like messing up, making a tackle, like whether it's in open space or off a block, like fighting through traffic. He just has great technique, and he improved every year there as well. Like he started with an 8.2 missed tackle rate as a freshman, then improved that to 6.7% in 2022. And then last year, 4.7% missed tackle rate in 2023. Like just clean work from him. It's so important for IDP as well, right? Like just not leaving meat on the bone and not getting into coaches' bad books as well, which helps keep him on the field. In coverage too, like you mentioned, like there's times where he's late to recognize, right? But I thought he showed off his range really well in coverage. Could cover sideline to sideline, chasing down those flat outs or wide screens. Had a nice coverage grade this past year, 83.4. And what I liked about it too, like, you watch him, it's not inflated by like interceptions and pass breakups, but just solid coverage all around it and making the plays that he's supposed to make, right? And he doesn't have any interceptions in his college career, but I think as long as he remains that solid and steady linebacker in the middle there, like those things will come on top of being able to rack up tackles. I really do. I think he could eventually emerge as the best linebacker in this class. If not as a rookie, then 2 to 3 years time. I don't think it would take him long. So, look, I've been praising him here, and I'll admit, I'm kind of in love with him as well. I know he's
I'm
not.
getting hyped.
Yeah, man, he's not like this like incredible athlete by any means. So we'll see how the NFL views him, and landing spot's going to be key. But I don't think he really has like such glaring weaknesses that aren't also common with every other linebacker coming out. Like, flipping his hips into coverage sometimes overpowered on blocks. Those are all things that we just kind of expect from the linebacker position. But there's also just so much that he does well and plays really clean. Like I said, I think coaches are going to love him. So I'm really hoping he gets a nice landing spot. But yeah, I mean, my landing spot. What do you got as your landing spot for Colson?
So I just love the Michigan love. I gotta tell you, John, like this is music to my ears, man. Yeah, I'm getting hyped over here. Joe, the landing spot. This is one you just hit. I picked Tampa Bay for Colson.
Nice.
I thought a lot of the same reasons you were talking about with Cooper, right? That's who you had going there. I thought with Colson, like you said, KJ Britt's there, Sebastian Dennis. One of those guys is going to win the other spot next to Levante David. If Colson got that nice landing spot, he could, take that spot and then learn from Levante David and then just run the show when David, eventually. I mean, how many more years he's gonna play, I don't know, but yeah, I think he could just be the man there for Todd Bowles. So I kind of went that route. Yeah,
that would be sick. Yeah, I mean, yeah, for me, like I originally I was gonna avoid this landing spot to dodge the cliche of Harbaugh bringing in Michigan guys, and I originally had the Washington Commanders here, but then they went and signed Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner in free agency. So guess what? It's the Los Angeles Chargers as his ideal landing spot for me. I think he's better than Kenneth Murray, Diane Henley, and Nick Neiman, maybe combined. No, just kidding. But at least potential wise, right? There's so much more to like with Colson than I think the guys that they already have on the roster. And I'd be all in on him again. I mean, more so if he landed on the Chargers and getting that perfect scheme fit for him as well with Harbaugh there. So yes, please. I really hope that if there's one player in the draft that I hope Harbaugh brings in from Michigan, it's Junior Colson.
Yeah, like he's gonna go full blown. He's gonna trade Herbert, draft McCarthy, draft Corum in the second, and then grab Colson in the third. Yeah,
let's run it. Yeah.
Just run it back.
It would be beautiful. It would be beautiful to see, man.
No, I like that spot a lot. Yeah, it makes sense. I had that one written down on the paper too as potential for him because it makes so much sense and it'd be an awesome fit too.
It's a low hanging fruit landing spot for sure. But like I said, I wanted to avoid it at first. I was going to put Washington, but they went linebacker heavy in free agency. So Chargers, man, let's see it.
Let's go.
All right. Next up, another fun prospect to talk about. Number 4 on the PFF big board out of Clemson. It is Jeremiah Trotter Jr. So with Trotter, some of the things I liked about him, doesn't really have trouble winning his blocks with that quickness, getting around offensive linemen at the line of scrimmage or the second level. It's kind of after those reps that he wins that things get a bit more sporadic because it feels like he's almost playing a bit of a guessing game at times as well, right? With the angles he takes after getting those wins. But sometimes too, like with him, I found just ends up way wide of kind of where he should be. Other times he's just like a bit late to react in wrapping up and making the tackle, which led to a lot of missed tackles this past year, 15 in 2023. But he's really interesting in that it's such a weird thing for a player with like an 80+ run defense grade to have these kind of glaring issues, whether it's either a missed tackle or one of the other ones that is typically a rarity, but I found happened to him quite a bit is that he'll beat the initial second level block and then another blocker will come free, offensive line or tight end, whatever, and just be there to eliminate him from the play completely because he's not expecting it or he's ending up in the wrong gap at times too. But he got a lot more hands on him, I noticed, compared to the rest of the class. So I wonder, if that was by design, trying to focus on him more as an offense. But For him, I did like the way that he played. I like that kind of quickness or try to get around blocks. And sometimes it does work and he makes big plays in the backfield or around the line of scrimmage for a stop. It does go both ways. But um, he also earned a decent coverage grade over the past couple of years. But similarly to him as a run defender, there's some bad in there to make me concerned, right? A lot of the same over pursuit and bad angles and missed tackle issues are all still there when playing coverage. Plays a lot more zone coverage. And one thing I noticed is that he's really slow or delayed in his reaction times when he's the primary defender in coverage. Even when it's obvious that the ball is going to his guy, his break on the ball just takes way too long to happen. So I wouldn't call him rangy by any means either. Like there are instances where he shows off decent range, but for the most part, and maybe this has to do with his angles as well, he's kind of slow to get outside the numbers, rarely in position to actually make a play on the ball carrier. I'm realizing this sounds very negative of Jeremiah Trotter. I think I just like a lot of the stuff that you expect the guy to do well, he does, right? And then I think I put I really kind of focused on the negative because that stuff really stood out for me. But I am like a fan of his tools, his athleticism, but I think there's plenty of work to be done here as far as coaching him up and kind of slowing down the game a bit for him. And like I said, those kind of sporadic results that you get from him play to play, even if they initially start off well for him, could probably end up being a frustration for coaches. So a good coach can help him with a lot of that. He already has that ability, athleticism, and size to succeed at the next level. But I'd like to see that translate to more of a focused and stable result on the field, I guess, is also. How about you?
Yeah, I had a lot of the same notes. Like you said, he's really crafty slipping blocks in the initial block, right? He's super crafty, and you can see that with 28 and a half tackles for loss and 12 sacks over the last 2 seasons. So, he's crafty getting behind the line and making plays. He really is. But that, there's the other instances where, like you said, too, he slips a block and he gets himself out of the play, or there's another set of hands coming, they ride him out. I saw that as well. The one thing too, right? NFL bloodlines.
Right.
His dad played 12 seasons, 4 Pro Bowls, over 900 tackles. It's in his linebackers in his blood. So hopefully, that bodes well for him. Cleaning up some things. I know you were talking about his speed. Not the rangiest guy, and I had a note he's straight line fast when he closes, right? That's kind of what I noticed with him too, right? That you were talking about his delayed reaction. Yeah, right. I definitely noticed that too. And his ranginess, I'm not so sure. But he's straight line fast. When he goes, and when he slip a block and he can get there in a hurry. Another thing I had, you talked about, I had a note as well, was his angles. And I thought that kind of hindered his range as well. He takes some odd angles sometimes, right. And especially there's a few outside runs where he couldn't close the distance to get there. He just took a real wide angle instead of cutting him off. And I don't know if he just didn't trust what, it was right. Just kind of every once in a while it was odd. And I think, that, you talked about the missed tackles last year. I think that could have had something to do with it too. He just wasn't in a good spot to make the play, and it's something to clean up. A lot of the same notes, man. I loved his craftiness, slipping blocks and making plays. I thought there's a lot of good. And then there's some reps where, where's he going and why did he take that angle? But just things he can clean up. There's enough to like with him too. There's some IDP upside with him.
For sure. There's definitely, I think, upside for him. A lot of the stuff that, is I guess a negative for him that we touched on, I think is all kind of coachable stuff that you can clean up over time. Right. And, getting, again, another one of those things that comes with more experience and things like that. I don't know where he's expected to be drafted, probably. So it seems like it'll be, day 2-ish, right? Where he's going to go. So should have some relatively good draft capital behind him. And I think it's deserved. There's some, again, ability there, athleticism, tools, speed, all that kind of stuff. And size that you can kind of rely on in the NFL and invest in and build upon, right? So for that reason, I think there's definitely potential for him to be maybe a day 1 guy, depending on landing spot. I have him my favorite landing spot being the Seattle Seahawks. Like, this is a team that I think is still going to add to their linebacker core. I know they have Jerome Baker and Tyrell Dodson as the new signings this offseason. Both of those guys are on 1-year deals. I'm not a big fan of Jerome Baker. He just doesn't do it for me. I think Trotter could be a guy that, again, has that potential for day one or to come in year two and be the starter that the team relies on. So that's kind of the spot that I was looking at him. But how about you?
I like it. I kind of took a little bit of low hanging fruit. We talked about NFL bloodlines with his dad. Well, his dad spent a lot of time in Philadelphia during his career, so I picked Philadelphia for Trotter. They brought in Devin White on a 1-year deal, whatever. He's been trending in the wrong direction. Not sure how that's going to pan out. Kobe Dean struggled to stay healthy. They could look to add a guy on day 2, like you said, and his dad was there, and Vic Fangio might want another guy to bring in and a guy with some NFL bloodlines. So what the hell?
That would be fun.
Right on, man.
Yeah, that would be a cool one to see for sure. And like you said, Devin White 1-year deal. So we'll see if he works out there. But yeah, I don't mind that at all. All right, next up, Golden Domer, Marist Liufau, the number, I think I have no idea how to pronounce that. But part of the problem with watching like these guys just on all 22 is you don't hear commentators say their names. So I have zero idea how the hell to say Marist's name here, or Marist. I'm not sure. Marist Liufau, the number 5 ranked linebacker on the PFF big board. But let's get into him. Where are you at with him?
So we're gonna go at Liufau, because I'm not sure.
Okay,
Liufau. Okay, we're gonna roll with that. So Liufau. I thought, solid build, good arm length, 34.25-inch arms. So you like the tackle radius there. Aggressive dude. He's got the long hair coming out, curly hair, and the tattoos. Like, he just looks like a dude built to play football. Aggressive dude, plays with high effort. Saw that right away. He might not always be right with his reads, but to me, it looks like he trusts what he sees and just goes with it. I can appreciate that. So I thought there was, some upside with him as a blitzer. I thought he could be crafty, navigating traffic to get pressure sometimes. He also is used out wide a little bit at Notre Dame. So teams, they might be able to get a little creative with him if they want, move him around a little bit. He graded out well in coverage, 84-1. So, he's got the length there to be disruptive, getting passing lanes and stuff. So a little bit upside there as well with him. So that in the, a little bit of coverage upside, some blitzing upside. He's an intriguing guy, right? And he's fun to watch. I really had a lot of fun. He was one guy when I watched his tape, I was like, I didn't watch a whole lot of Notre Dame games. And when I watched his tape, I saw a few, but I was like, man, this guy's sticking out. I missed watching him, during the season, how much he stood out to me in tape. I thought he was a lot of fun. Some concerns. A little bit of an injury concern. He had an ankle injury to cost him all the 2021 season. So that's a bummer. Statistically, never really put up real big numbers in college. That's not the end all be all or anything, but he requires a little bit of projection there because he never quite hit necessarily eye popping numbers. But missed tackles. He had a career high 10 in his final season. So clean that up a little bit. And along those lines, I thought, I talked about he's an aggressive dude. I think playing a little more under control might help in that area. So, how about you? Liufau.
Yeah. So, I guess we came away a little bit different with him, I think, right? Because, I watched, I'd say, most of his season. So there's probably some games in there that I didn't miss, and that could be where the gap is as well, right? But for me, I found him kind of frustrating. Like, I found like a very tentative kind of tackler, like almost he's waiting for the ball carrier to run into him at times before he tries to wrap up. So I don't know. You mentioned the aggression, right? Like, I saw it at times, but not consistently, I guess. Okay. Right. And I noticed, just the tentativeness a little bit more, which I was kind of struggling with. Right. And he already had like this 18.4 or 18.9% missed tackle rate last year. And I ding him a little bit even more than that, just for not even like attempting the tackle. And I think that's where some of that low production comes from as well from him. Yeah. Like, I think I barely cracked 50 tackles or something like that, or even what did he have? 43 tackles, something like that. So really low production as well. And I just, some of it is just, I think, due to that tentativeness for him. He's actually good at like getting into position to make a play. I just found like he didn't have the aggressiveness that I was kind of looking for from him. And then just often getting blown up by offensive linemen, making it to the second level as well,
Yeah.
which, again, happens to all linebackers. But,
Yep.
For him, I found it was particularly common. Yeah, he had a good bit of usage as a pass rusher or blitzer over the past couple of years. He's been fine in that regard as well. 36 pressures, 6 sacks on 241 attempts. And there's definitely those moments, right, where he flashes that speed and that burst off the snap and he closes quickly. But similar issues kind of wrapping up and finishing the play, right? So that's where I struggled there again. In coverage, there's decent examples of him as well where he's able to cover downfield or make plays on the ball in the air. But I don't know. For me, like, I was nothing that I was like excited about for him, or that separates him from kind of the rest of the class at linebacker. And I don't know. I was bummed out, and I feel like I'm being a downer two players in a row here, right? But but I will get excited for linebackers again in a little bit. But yeah, I just got a lot of kind of Jag vibes from Liufau. Unfortunately, like there's, like I said, moments of burst and physicality taking on those blockers or getting to his gap, but just not enough finish there. And then that hesitancy once he was in position just kind of killed it for me. It was almost like there were times where I wrote down like he's surprised that he made it to the ball carrier at times, and then he panicked. And so I think he could be fine as like kind of a rotational player or backup in the NFL, but I'd be really surprised if he was, winning a starting job anywhere, at least early in his career. But yeah. I mean, that's
I get it. I didn't have super high. I thought his tape was fun at times. It's some of those backside pursuit plays I probably gave him more credit for than I should have, because there is times he came screaming off the edge, right, and he could get there, and there were some really fun plays. But like I said, he's not always right with his reads, but when he sees it, he goes. There was times where he stalled. I do agree with you. I had that written down as well. Yeah, and that, you're right. That could be part of the reason why his production wasn't exactly eye-popping at all. I mean,
right.
And you just there it's a lot of highs and lows, and sometimes that'll catch your eye when there's not much going on. Boom, he makes his play that you chart, and you're like, oh, okay. But no, I don't have the highest. I think he's interesting, but I don't have. I think he's a day 3 guy all day. I don't see him. I don't see him creeping up in day 2.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with him. Like I'm fine taking a shot on him day 3, right? Like I didn't have like a favorite landing spot. Like I just thinking like rotational spot, like New England or Cleveland or Cincinnati or Pittsburgh or Dallas. Like Dallas probably the main one for me. They like to rotate their guys in and out, and he's not enough of a threat to hurt Damone Clark or Marquise Bell there in year 1, but you got Eric Kendricks there as well as a solid vet, similar hairstyle as Liufau as well, or at least he used to, right? So he could mentor him a little bit there, but yeah, I guess, you obviously not giving too much away, but I'll be lower on him, obviously.
Yeah, no, for sure. Did you say your landing spot?
I had a few, but I think Dallas was the one
Dallas,
that I kind of landed on. Yeah,
I kind of went the same route. Like I went Carolina just because there's not much there. Josie Jewell, Shaq Thompson, obviously coming back from the broken leg, brutal leg injury. I think he's got 1 more year left. I just picked a spot that somebody's like a day 3 dart throw. I think I'm a little more intrigued with him than you are, but I get the hesitancy with him because it's, he missed the season. The production's not great. It's kind of, it was like peaks and valleys with him for me watching tape. And sometimes, like I said, you can give guys a little bit too much credit for those like eye popping, backside pursuit plays, or when they track him down and drag him down, the hair's flying. So, I mean, I get it, we're a little different on him, but I don't necessarily have a high grade either. As far as where he's going to go in the draft and everything. So,
yeah. All right, well, let's move to a linebacker that I think garners a little bit more excitement for the position, right? It is Payton Wilson of North Carolina State. So this is the number 1 linebacker on the PFF big board right now, 6'4", 238 we have him at. And one thing I think, watching Payton Wilson that stood out right away is that he spent a ton of time on those early downs, like playing off the edge or wide of the tackles. And I thought that really played to his advantage because he takes sharp angles to the backfield and he utilizes his speed to get in there and make plays. And that's really where his best plays come from. Like he could get a little bit messed up when playing in the middle, but I thought he played really well out wide a little bit more. Does a really nice job off the snap against offensive linemen and wins with speed or bend, dipping under blockers and just utilizing that speed and his tight angles to get himself into position. Not always great at getting off of blocks with his strength, has to rely more on that speed and good pursuit angles, which is fine, but would like to see him add a little bit more power to his game as well, considering his size. But I thought he was an aggressive coverage defender, always looking to kind of be around the ball and follows the play nicely for the most part. And that puts him in position to make plays. And he's made some sick interceptions as a result of just being around the ball and in the right spot. Like there was a pick six that he had against Clemson, I think it was, just the perfect example of him just being a magnet to the ball. Like he's playing on the right B gap and the ball gets batted at the left C gap. It doesn't bounce all the way to where his gap was, but because he's just taking off in that direction of where the ball is going, he actually catches it like in stride a couple of feet from the line of scrimmage and then takes it to the house. Like it was pretty sick stuff. So I will say like that kind of aggressiveness and wanting to be around the ball, it can hurt him at times because he'll bite pretty hard on fakes or double moves and get absolutely dummied from time to time. But look, this is a guy that I think, he posted an elite 90.4 coverage grade this past year, had 3 pretty remarkable interceptions in there. So he has the chops to do it. I'll be curious to see how his style of play, like specifically translates to the NFL. If he's going to be a starter, teams will kind of hopefully know how to take advantage of him because he's nasty as a pass rusher as well because he has that speed and those moves at the line of scrimmage. 22 pressures, 6 sacks this past year. And he was also asked to rush the passer a ton, 151 times in 2023. So, treat that how you will, but he's also doing it a lot because he's good at it. So I came away liking Payton Wilson quite a bit. I definitely get why he'd be ranked so high on our big board. And I've seen him ranked pretty highly on a lot of boards as well. So how are you feeling about him?
Yeah, I love Payton Wilson as well. Excellent combination, size and speed. But 6'4", 233, I think he came in at the combine, ran a 4.43 40 with a 1.53 10-yard split. I mean, just sick at that size. And you see it on tape. He's like you said, aggressive dude. His motor never stops. I don't know that there's a linebacker you're going to see that plays with as much effort as that dude because he never freaking stops. That you're talking about that sick interception, love that, and then the epic clip where he chases down that wide receiver from Notre Dame too. It's just nuts, man. Just tracks him down. I absolutely enjoyed his tape. Versatile dude. Like you said, he played on the edge and crashes down hard. Doesn't necessarily have like this crazy pass rush repertoire, but he'll just run right through your ass if you ain't ready. So I loved it. Effective blitzer. He solid tackler, 138 tackles this year. That his last year at NC State was just stellar this year. Production wise, he graded out excellently. 89.9 defensive grade, 90.6 tackle grade, 90.4 coverage grade. I think he said, like, that's just sick. Just a great final year for a guy who struggled with injury during his career. That's, kind of one of the big knocks on him is the injury concerns. He's dealt with upper body, lower body injuries, missed time, a little bit of an older prospect's another thing. There's times you get stuck on blocks. I think you mentioned that as well. Just kind of upping his technique and stuff. I think he's got plenty of size and strength to do it. So Wilson's fun, man. He is he's a dude who is built for IDP production because he plays like a maniac.
He really does, man. Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Like he's built for IDP production. Like there's a lot to like about his game. Like he has a bunch of flashy plays on tape between, sacks and interceptions and impressive pass breakups and chasing down wide receivers, like you said. But he has some of the injury concerns as well that hasn't, I don't think, seem to affect his movement on the field as
No,
far as I
yeah,
can tell, right? Like
yeah,
the
for
guy could
sure.
cover, he rushes the passer like some of the best at the position and takes ideal tackles to make angles, dominated our stable metrics for his position as well,
Yeah.
thanks to that like insane 2023 season that he had. So yeah, really impressed with Payton Wilson. You got a favorite landing spot for him?
I took Seattle.
There you go. So-
Yeah, I think you had that for another guy. Yeah, I think like same thing you said. I'm not the biggest Jerome Baker fan either. 1 year deal. Dotson is an intriguing guy. They brought in Tyrell
Yeah.
Dotson on a 1 year deal. He showed well in Buffalo last year. He got a little more run. Those guys, right? 1 year deals, stopgap. They lost about 2,000 snaps from last year. They got a new scheme coming in. Mike McDonald and Aiden Durd could use their guy to hold it down. I thought. I was looking for a spot where he could come in and just, take over.
Oh
So,
yeah.
yeah, I went with Seattle.
Yeah, no, I like that. I did the same kind of thing. I put the LA Rams and
Mhm.
I know they've got Ernest Jones, who we all love, and I'm not saying
Yep.
he's a replacement to him, but to work alongside him and what
Mhm.
doesn't have to be an every down role right away, but could actually go either way. Like as far as usage goes between the two of them, they're both very good blitzers. They blitzed the shit out of Ernest last year,
Yeah.
133 pass rush snaps, third among linebackers. So you can now have two guys who can do both and contribute there. And it frees up Ernest to play more of that typical off ball linebacker role and continue to be an effective tackler as well, right? Plus,
Mhm.
Payton Wilson just 100 times better than what their other linebackers options are right
Oh
now.
God.
Christian
Yeah.
Roseboom and Jake Hummel, or whoever
Yeah.
else they have. But
Yeah.
and then you'll still have Cameron Curl in there as well for additional support. So it could be a really nice unit, I think, with Payton Wilson in the mix. So
That'd be fun.
yeah, that's the one I was kind of hoping for.
I like that. No, that's a fun landing spot for sure with him, Jones, and Cam Curl. That'd be fun. That'd be exciting.
Yeah, they got to get the excitement back there because after the
Yes.
Aaron Donald retirement, man. So,
Yes.
but hey, they added to the secondary. The secondary is going to be exciting this year. So,
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
all right, two names left here, and Kyle, we had you start off the conversation on your Michigan defender, so let's give you the start on a hated Michigan rival, Ohio State guy, in Tommy Eichenberg, who's the 6th ranked linebacker on the PFF big board. What did you think of Eichenberg?
Yeah, it's all red across the board here. Just check marks. No,
Yeah,
all red
no,
check marks.
sure.
Yeah, Tommy Eichenberg. First note I put watching his tape, and I've seen him enough of him being a Michigan fan, Big Ten country. He's just, to me, a tough, physical, no nonsense lunch pail linebacker. Comes ready to work. He's getting the lunch pail tag for me this year. Just what he seems like.
Sure.
He's an experienced, smart player. You won't have to question his effort. Instinctually and stuff. I thought to me, it looks like he plays under control. Like he knows what he's good at, and what way he processes things. Overall, I thought he showed good strength at the point of attack. He's pretty well put together dude. I mean, at times he can hold his ground. It's tough in there, but he's just, compared to some of the guys, he got a little bit more praise in my notes as far as his ability to hold his own with his strength. But that's not necessarily it wasn't necessarily the biggest thing. But at times I thought he could hold it a little bit better than most. To me, he just, he looks like a box dude. He looks like a guy that's going to hold down the middle, box enforcer type, I guess. Biggest concern was around his speed and range. He just didn't look like the most agile linebacker to me either. Just wasn't sure if he's going to be able to patrol sideline to sideline. Thought he was a little more straight line when he goes type of dude. I think the athletic concerns. We didn't get to see him test, so I was really hoping to see him run and see what numbers, to see if I was missing a little bit there or not. I just kind of worry about his ability to hold up in coverage and man coverage specifically. I'm kind of worried about that. So that, in that regard, I think it could maybe limit him to as a 2-down guy, which is a bummer, right, for IDP, because you come off the field and you're not going to get any points for us. So that's not great. So a little bit worried there with the athleticism. I would like to have seen him hit some numbers to see what he has, but And also one of the other things too is, he had a really nice junior season, but this last year his production dipped and so did his grades across the board. And that was one of the biggest things. I'm like, I watched both years, I watched some 2022 tapes and 2023 tape, and yeah, it looked a little different, I guess, but it's a big concern kind of when it's that much of a drop for a guy that's, been the leader there. So, yeah, I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah, concerning. Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I'm gonna get kind of negative for Tommy Eichenberg a little bit,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'll start positive, right? Like, the first thing that stands out, really clean tackler. I think he has good
Yeah.
form. He
Yeah.
wraps up well, does a nice job kind of stopping runners in their tracks, and that translates to his missed tackle rate as well, right? He's improved that in each of the
Yep.
past 3 years. I think he had a solid 8.7 missed tackle rate in 2023, right? But I get my problem with Eichenberg is that there's, at least in 2023, like, there's way too many instances of him kind of being washed out in the run game. I just found he was unable to win with power or shed blocks. And as a result, he's just taken out of position to make tackles more
Mhm.
often than not. And that just scares me when translating
Yeah.
to the NFL. And then, like you said, as far as coverage goes, I'll just say, like, this is a 2-down linebacker.
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
not like
Yeah.
at all what I saw in coverage. Just looks lost, dropping into zone, takes some terrible angles when going after targets. Range is fine, and there are times when he makes like a nice kind of rangy play to tackle around the line of scrimmage, but just not enough for me. If
Yeah.
I'm any NFL team to want to, I'm not putting him on the field on crucial passing downs, at
No.
least not, early in his career. I thought he did a fine job rushing the passer at times. So that probably is the best opportunity for him to get on the field on those
Mhm.
downs, but it's not something that, was special by any means. And it's something that most NFL prospects at the linebacker position are going to be above average at, it is
Yeah.
blitzing, right? And he's just
Yes.
really close to the average in that regard. So yeah, it was weird. Like this, you mentioned it, like this past year, I don't know. I didn't like what I saw for the most part. I
No.
mean, especially compared to his 2022 tape, where he was just so much better at getting around blockers, putting
Yeah.
himself in the right position. The difference between that year and 2023 was night and day. And I don't know, maybe we have some Ohio State fans who could shed some light on it or whatever, but I don't know, what was he dealing with, an injury last year that I'm
Yeah.
missing? Did his give a shit level drop? Was 2022 just an anomaly? And,
Yeah.
this is the linebacker that he is. Either way, he's probably like another mid to late day 3 prospect for me. And I don't know if he's going to win any starting jobs in the NFL to be IDP relevant at this point. So I'm super low on Eichenberg.
Yeah. No, I like I had the same notes, man. It's 2 down guys. What I thought. I thought in
Yeah.
2022 he was a lot better at the point of attack, stacking
Yeah.
and shedding. This year, I watched only a few games going back, but because I was trying to understand why everything, there was such a dip. Like what happened, and it just,
Right.
yeah, I don't know. Like there's even times this year where he'd hit the hole, hold his ground, but do nothing with it. You can hold it sometimes, but then you're not making the play because you're just grasping at air at that point. But yeah, no, it's a mixed bag there. But yeah, it was. I'm with you, man. I was hoping for better.
Yeah.
He's made plays against Michigan over the years. I've seen him. I've seen 35 screw things up for us. But yeah, this year's tape was a little
Sure.
underwhelming for sure. Worry about his. Yeah, he's a 2-down dude. That scares me too.
Yeah, that's the thing. And like you said, like, he's one of those lunch pail guys, right? And I thought I'd come in kind of
Hmm.
liking him a little bit
Hmm.
more, especially because I started, with late 2022 tape, and thought,
Yeah.
there was some good in there, and then moved to 2023 to watch the full season. And yeah, I just came away feeling like, he's going to be a rotational guy at best, kind of regardless of where he lands. So I mean, I had, for landing spot, I have him staying in the state of Ohio with the Cincinnati Bengals. I think, he can kind of work in among that rotation of linebackers there with Wilson and Pratt and Davis Gaither. If, one of those guys goes down,
Yeah.
there's a role for him to get some action without being thrust into a full-time role where I think he'd absolutely get exposed. So, potentially play some of those like Marcus Bailey snaps, which is to say,
Yeah.
like, start out on like a super low snap count, but still see the field some in year 1, basically. So yeah, how about you? Where did you have
Makes sense. I have him in the state of Ohio as well, just going to Cleveland.
Oh,
So
okay. There you go.
yeah, they lost Taki
Yeah.
and who else did they lose? Gosh, I'm drawing a blank.
Anthony
Walker.
yeah.
Walker. So there's some snaps they lost, and they brought in Jordan Hicks. He's not going to challenge Jordan Hicks.
Right.
So I was just looking like depth, a guy that could, maybe play in the middle a little bit for him. I'll let JOK run wild and be cool and be fun. So zero threat to him. But yeah, no, a lot of the same lines, right? And those guys that left were 400 or 500 snap a year guys anyway. So
right.
That's that's what I envision as well.
Yeah, unfortunately. But all right, let's go. Last name of the night here, and it is a guy that I'm actually really glad you brought to my attention, because he was one that I hadn't watched yet until you brought him up as a combine riser, and I gotta say I came away very optimistic about him. It's Trevin Wallace out of Kentucky. He's the 15th linebacker on the PFF big board, but he had an excellent showing at the combine. Ran a 4.51 40 time, which was 93rd percentile for his position. He did that at 240 pounds as well. Had a 127 broad jump, which was 92nd percentile. Like, he's not huge, but he's thick and athletic, and I think there's potential here for him in the NFL. And I know he didn't grade particularly well in our system, like as a run defender or at all, really. But I'm still glad you brought up his name, especially coming off that impressive showing at the combine, because I think a lot of that athleticism does show up on tape, and you can see the upside with him if he can clean up his game, basically, right? He's great at getting around blockers with speed and quickness, and does a great job putting himself in position to make a play in the same way. When he maybe doesn't necessarily have any business to be in that position, right? He's able to make those plays, if that makes sense. What his game kind of reminded me of really is Devin White in the NFL, in that all the high end highlight plays are exciting and make a huge difference on a smaller scale, but his larger sample of play, he plays with that same level, of explosiveness and athleticism that also puts him, way out of position more on some plays, kind of like a Cedric Gray I found as well, right? So So there's like a lot of like his negative plays on tape come after an initial positive as well, where he does an exceptional job either shedding a block or getting to his gap quickly, but then after that it's kind of hit or miss on whether he'll be able to make a play, because he's another one of those guys that I think can overshoot his target by a lot or blow up a running back in the backfield. It's a pretty jarring contrast a lot of the time from like play to play. But again, I don't mind the aggressiveness and betting on those traits, because even at times when he misses tackles, falls to the ground, he bounces back up and gets himself back in the play so quickly that like he can recover and still make positive plays there. So I'll take that over, just being like a big lug out there that struggles to get off blocks and even be close to making those plays. So, we just talked about, worthy NFL prospects all kind of being able to blitz relatively well. And Wallace is a plus in that regard as well, because the dude can get on his horse and go attack the quarterback. He's slipping between offensive linemen, he overpowering running backs or leaping over those chop blocking running backs, and then finishing the play by wrapping up for sacks. But yeah, what else? I got a lot on Wallace. I kind of came away liking him. Like, he had some fine plays in coverage where he breaks on the ball, limits the yak opportunity, which is really probably the most we can ask for most linebackers. The problem with him, I notice, is that he's often kind of late to recognize when receivers have entered his zone. So that can allow some of those easy completions. But again, the nice thing is that he's got that quickness and agility to recover immediately and still make a play most of the time, or at least get back close to the play. And I feel like I can make, like, after watching him, I felt like I could make like a pretty nice collage of like screenshots comparing the times where the moment is very clear that he blew the coverage and how far he was from the ball carrier to where the ball, or like to where the play ended. And it's either him tackling the ball carrier still or within at least a yard of them when they're tackled by someone else. So that play recognition, sure, it's an issue, but I think something that'll come with experience as well. And he's just had that, the one full season as a starter in college.
Yep.
So probably not an NFL ready prospect by any means, but a nice project player that I'd be willing to take a shot on for NFL teams. And if he ever gets a starting job, then I'd be excited about his IDP potential as well.
Yeah, I came away with pretty much in line with what you're seeing there too, John. I mean, you watch his tape, his athleticism pops right away. For sure. And then he goes to the combine, absolutely showed out. 4.5, 140, 37.5-inch vert, 10-foot 7-inch broad jump. So like those explosion numbers are excellent. And you can see it on tape. He looked crazy athletic on tape, and he showed it in Indianapolis in front of everybody. He's just like, the traits are there, man. Everything else that, one of the biggest knocks I had were his eyes. They're just inconsistent, right? Like you said, inconsistent with his reads and in coverage, but like the athleticism to make up for it and still make plays. You're like, holy shit, how did he get there? Like you said, gets up off the ground and still tracks him down. He's just got those traits that you either got him or you don't, and that dude can cover the field. I mean, just serious range. I thought he's at his best, kept clean, running around, just blowing stuff up. I like you made the Devin White reference with him, right? Was it him?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or did I already forget? That when you said that, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Like the fun Devin White was kind of the same, like running around doing stuff. I think he's got all the tools to be a 3-down guy. Just needs patience and development. Like he's got a lot of things to like, but like you said, the eyes, the reads, inconsistent. Something he can work on. You mentioned he's only been a 1-year starter, so not surprised that he's inconsistent in that area too. So he'll get some high level coaching. I can be a little hesitant. It goes along with the eyes, and it's like you talked about all these guys. They all can struggle getting driven off on blocks. Sure. I thought he can get washed out too. He's pretty thickly built, so he's got some. He's got some power behind him there to figure it out with some technique. I thought he could. He's one of those guys too. I think he could get a little bit better slipping blocks and like anticipating them too. I think he could be a weapon there if he can figure that part of his game up. He could slip blocks like Jeremiah Trotter. He could really mess some things up. He's got he's got the means to figure that out. Developmental guy would take time, but traits are exciting. So.
They are, yeah. And he had a 9.54 RAS score as well, right? Like, again, that athleticism, just it's a major plus for him. But I'm kind of buying into his potential and upside at the NFL level. Like, he definitely needs more coaching and experience to kind of refine his game, right? But I think like he has that potential to be like a legitimate 3-down linebacker at some point, and could be a really fun NFL player. And a similar, Kentucky combine riser, right, to a guy a couple of years ago in Jamin Davis, right? So I think,
yes, absolutely.
He seems to be drawing a little bit more interest around the NFL as well. So we'll see where he ends up going in the draft. But I love that you brought up this name so I could watch him, because I came away watching him and feeling excited about him, like a very fun player to watch. And I mentioned that, I'd have somebody going to the Green Bay Packers, and this was the guy that I like put there. Like I think about this kind of sexy linebacker pairing of Quaker and Trevin Wallace now. It doesn't have to be year one, right? Like I think, like we said, Isaiah McDuffie's he's earned a chance to be the starter. Just the amount of times that he did a solid job filling in for either Walker or Campbell last year, but. Yeah, McDuffie also, an undersized guy, 6th round pick, graded okay at best, in 2023. So good chance he's not the long-term starter there. It gives somebody like a Trevin Wallace some time to acclimate to the NFL as well, and then potentially unleash him in year 2. So that's where I had him. Where'd you got him going?
I just want to say I do like that fit, and because I think that's a really nice scenario. Because I think McDuffie has familiarity with Halfley. I thought he played okay for a smaller linebacker last year. Yeah, I'm not getting a whole Packer thing again, but but no, that'd be fun because he could sit back and learn and let him and Quay that be an athletic duo, man. That's a really really dig that. I picked Tennessee.
Nice.
They brought in Kenneth Murray. Jack Gibbons is there. You know what Jack Gibbons is. The depth chart's pretty wide open. I don't, maybe Tennessee's a team. If they were to draft him wherever he falls, maybe early day 3, whatever, take a shot. And if they're not looking so hot, they throw him out there at the end of the year and let him run around and do some cool stuff, and or just let him develop and learn and on to year 2 to see if he can figure it out. But yeah, they got a new defensive coordinator, and I thought maybe he grabs a guy he thinks he can mold, and he comes from Edgerrin Wilson came from Baltimore, I believe. So, he might want to find a guy he could develop. So,
yeah. No, I'm with you. I love that. Love that spot there. And I think I mentioned Kenneth Murray before when I was talking about the Chargers, but he's on, I think Tennessee now, right? But either way, whatever. People know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Doesn't matter. But yeah, man, this is a fun, kind of interesting class as usual.
Oh, yes.
Right. But let's get into the rankings now, because we've talked about every guy here. Let's start at number 8. I'll start with you. Who is your 8th ranked guy out of this group that we talked about today?
Number 8, I had Marist Liufau.
Okay.
Is that how we're saying it? Yeah, Liufau. Yeah, that's why I had 8. No, I think, I might have been a little more intrigued with him than you, definitely. But I didn't necessarily have a super high grade on him either. I thought he was fun in the regards, like he has the wild hair, the tattoos, and he makes those track down backside pursuit plays, and there's some good, cool plays, but I do get it. Like, yeah. So I had him at 8.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I have, like, how some people have like a 1A and a 1B. I have like an 8A and an 8B for this group. So yeah, Liufau is one of them, and then Tommy Eichenberg was the other one. Yeah, so we covered Liufau, but yeah, Eichenberg also, I have a hard time getting too excited about him. Like, maybe there's potential there. They're long term. I know, he looks like the kind of guy that could be a strong IDP tackler, but doesn't really play like it a lot of the time, at least this past year. So I have obviously some major concerns there. So that's kind of my 7 and 8, or 8 and 7, however order you want to.
8A, 8B for me as well. I could bring it 7. I gave him the nod because he had, it's a stronger success in college. There's a little more tackle production potential there. So, but not really.
Yeah, that's fair. How about number 6? Who'd you put at 6?
I have Trevin Wallace at 6.
Okay. Yeah,
I like Wallace. Just it kind of wait and see still. Developmental guy, but love the traits.
Yeah, this was a tough one for me, because it was either Trevin Wallace or Cedric Gray, and I kind of weighed the two of them. And you know what? I put Trevin Wallace at 5. I put Cedric Gray at 6, and I don't know. I'm buying into that potential a little bit more with Trevin Wallace, and that's definitely, again, he's the 15th linebacker on the PFF big board, so it's a big difference, obviously. But among this group, this 8 that we're talking about today, I like him a pretty decent amount. I have him at 5, and then Gray, like you said, at 6. So was Gray your 5, or you have somebody else?
Yeah, okay. Same thing. I had those guys 5 and 6. I had Gray at 5, and it's close. So. All
right. So it's pretty close here. Let's see if we can break it up a little bit. So my number 4 is Jeremiah Trotter Jr. At Clemson. So again, I think there's a lot to like about his game. I know that I kind of focused a little bit more on the negatives with him than I probably needed to, but that's why he's kind of outside that top 3 for me. But I do like the potential and the traits for him. So he's a guy that I think has potential day 1 to be a starter, depending on landing spot, and could be a good IDP, but I'm tentative, I guess.
Yeah, I got Trotter at 4 as well. So we're high fiving all the way up this board, dude.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens here at the very top. Who do you got at 3 for these guys?
So 3, I have Junior Colson.
Okay.
So
let's switch it up a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of thought you might. I always wonder if I'm too high when I was stacking up these last 3. I was like, am I putting my Michigan glasses on? I like these last 3 guys. I like them all. So but I had Colson at 3 anyway. So
no, it's a fair spot to have him. I'll say I'm higher on him. I have Edgerrin Cooper at 3 here. Again, another one of those guys that really like the aggressiveness and playing style potential to translate to IDP. But yeah, ultimately he's 3 for me. And I got Payton Wilson at 2.
I love
But
it.
yeah, so Junior Colson is my number 1.
That's
He's my
awesome.
LB1 for this year, man. I loved him. I just thought, as far as like, just again, I use the word clean so many times in describing him, but like I just think he has such a translatable game to the NFL, and just being somebody that you can trust on the field and do a good job and to play soundly and still, rack up production. That was the difference for me. I think Payton Wilson also excellent and has that potential, but I don't know. There's something about Junior Colson that just pushed him a little bit up over the top for me. So you don't have Colson at 1, so it's between Payton Wilson or Edgerrin Cooper for you. Who is your 1 and 2?
I have Edgerrin Cooper at 2 and Payton Wilson at 1.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, I've flip-flopped those guys before. Actually, I did an article, not a shameless plug or anything, but a pre-combine linebacker article. I had Colson at 2 at the time, and I just like these 3 guys. To me, you can make. I think you can make an argument, and I could see it. I think if Colson would have tested, he really could have got. I think you'd have hit some really nice numbers as far as that size speed combo and to go along with the fine tape that we talked about. But I like Cooper as well. I think he's got a lot of IDP potential. Like you said, his play style is he makes splash plays. He can make tackles, hold down the box. He's got long arms. He can get passing lanes. He's got a good tackle radius. And then Payton Wilson's just a maniac. There's some concerns with the injuries. He's a little older, but whatever. But God, he's fun. And, the guy screams IDP production to me. So I gave him the nod at 1.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I think, look, we're pretty much aligned with this group across the board here, right? So yeah, it's going to be fun to see where these guys shake out, and yeah, we'll probably talk about them again at some point here down the road. But it's draft season. The landing spot's obviously going to make a huge difference, but that's how kind of we're viewing this class here for 2024. Let us know if maybe there's guys that you want to see included in the list here for maybe post draft or something like that, or if you have a rankings of linebackers, share them in the YouTube comments if you'd like. But that is going to wrap it up for today's episode. So thank you to everyone for tuning in, whether you're watching on the YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe, or listening to the audio. We appreciate you. And most of all, a massive thank you to the legend Kyle Bellefeuil for coming on and talking rookie linebackers with me. Always a pleasure, my friend. So thank you for coming on here, lending your expertise as always.
Oh man, I appreciate having me on, John. This is a lot of fun. Man, it's always fun, like you said earlier, talk whatever, football, hockey. We can cry about the Red Wings. We can talk linebackers. It's always a blast, man. But no, this is a lot of fun. Intriguing class. It'll be really interesting to see what the draft brings and what teams tell us about. Yeah. I feel pretty good about Wilson, Cooper, and Colson. Like as prospects, and Trotter too. Like there's some things to like, but I'm curious what the NFL thinks about the rest of the class, and if some names pop up, like you said. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun to cover these guys in a class that's kind of all over the place.
Absolutely, yeah. It's linebackers, right? The NFL hasn't perfected evaluating linebackers either, right? So
Ivan Pace, they missed
exactly. They missed big time, and we hit. But yeah, never forget. Yeah, we'll see how it goes this year. Yeah. But before you do go as well, please remind everybody where they could find more of you and your work as well.
Oh, right on. Yeah, you can find all my work over at footballguys.com. Me and my buddy Joey the Tooth, Joseph Hagan, we hit some profiles on the defenders before the combine. We just kind of wrote some guys up and did a little profile work there. And then we just did a 2-round mock draft between a group of us, Joey and Tripp and Sigmund Bloom and Aaron Rudnicki and Matt Montgomery. It was a fun exercise to see how everybody sees the class and how these true position format, how it all shakes. So that was fun. And so we're doing a little rookie stuff and dynasty rankings, and That's where you can find anything I'm blabbing about, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely be sure to check out Kyle's work over at Football Guys as well. And yeah, speaking of Joey the Tooth, he's going to be on next week. We're talking the rookie edge group. So that'll be fun. There's some really good names to talk about there and to dive into. So I'll be excited to talk to Joey about that one as well. But yeah, you could also check out the rookie quarterback preview that Kate and I recorded this week as well. Some fun discussion in there that I think people will enjoy. But that's all for me and Kyle. Thank you all again. And Kyle, I am going to go cry about those Red Wings now because they're down 4-0. But thank you all again for listening. And until next time, peace out.